All right, so I've been saying for months now, literally going back to May, probably even late April, that the more time goes on, the more we're going to realize that this whole virus situation was completely overblown. And again, the big story came out on Saturday, actually, that the CDC quietly updated the virus number to admit that only 6% of all the 153,504 deaths recorded actually died from the virus. That's 9,210. The other 94% had other serious illnesses, and the overwhelming majority were of very advanced age. And again, this is exactly what I say too. And you can go check this stuff out for yourself. And again, this is literally the CDC saying it. This isn't some random news outlet. This is the CDC. Um, and it's exactly what I've been saying all along. As more and more evidence comes out from this whole virus thing, the more and more we realize that we completely overblew it. I mean, first, I mean, eventually, the death rate went continually down, down, down. It's still going down. Now the people dying of it is going down, down, down. And the other big thing that we've been talking about this whole time, or not the whole time, but most of the time, is if you die with the virus, but from another cause, then they still mark you as a virus death, right? Like we've had examples of people dying in car crashes, literally. We've had examples, plenty of examples of people not dying from the virus that have been listed to have died from the virus. We've literally had, doctors and funeral home directors confirm this. So again, this isn't just me making this crap up like a lot of people like to think. And this is the problem too, that because there's so many people that have such a vested interest in this being the doomsday virus, and we all need to be scared and all this garbage, people just never will admit they're wrong. It doesn't matter what evidence comes out. I mean, the death rate is already pretty much the same as the flu. It's significantly lower than the flu for people under 20. But yet you have all these paranoid Karens that, oh, we can't send the kids back to school. Oh, we're all going to die. They don't care. And then, when you point out that the death rate's way lower than the flu, they'll be like, oh, they're all going to spread it to their grandparents. Well, um, the asymptomatic spread is incredibly rare. And not only that, too, you're the same kind of people that wouldn't want to let your kids visit the grandparents anyways if you're that paranoid. So it doesn't change anything. If you, and this is the thing, we've known, this is what it's been for months now. If you want to be paranoid, I don't care. I really don't care if you want to be paranoid and wear your mask everywhere you go inside, and you want to, still think social distancing actually is the thing. um, Go ahead. I don't care. But forcing other people to do it doesn't make any sense. And that's about as authoritarian as you can possibly be. And again, the argument they come up both is, oh, it's not to protect you, it's to protect other people. And if you don't want to be forced to wear a mask, then you want people to die. No, that you never allow that argument when it comes to anything else. Whenever people bring up that, oh, people who smoke their whole life and are, 100 pounds overweight, shouldn't have to pay the same amount for their health care, I mean, probably less, considering the fact they probably don't have as good of a job, that healthy people shouldn't be forced to pay for health care of unhealthy people. They never accept that argument then, even when the argument's clearly a lot stronger, right? Like, smoking your whole life's got a lot better chance of killing someone than the virus, right? Especially younger. So they never accept that argument then, so I'm not going to accept it then. So that's the thing too, is that these people are so hypocritical and their arguments are so terrible, it's not even funny. And this is the thing, like I've been saying, is that yeah, before it's all said and done, it's going to be less than the flu for most people. I said that probably two months ago at least. I probably said that maybe even in May, but if not, for sure in June. And yet, yeah, here it is. And this is the thing too, that the vast majority of people are dying because of more because of other things, more because, and this is the thing, you have 6% of that 6%, probably 80 to 90%. I'd say probably 90+% if I was just guessing, and if I was having to bet, are people who are senior citizens, like over 60, even probably 70. So the reality has been so clear this whole time is that anybody who's under 60, and especially if you don't have a comorbidity, you don't need to take any precautions whatsoever in other than when it comes to it wanting to visit, your older relatives, right? That's the only time when life should look any different right now. That is the only time. And but yet is the government ever going to admit it? No. And this is the problem with governments, is that the incentive is entirely driven for them to never admit they're wrong, no matter how wrong they look. Like, never admit they're wrong, no matter how wrong they look. And that's why this stuff's never going to work out. Given the fact that, and not to mention too, we have a high, false positive rate. Like, this whole virus situation, in February and in March, people were mocked for comparing it to the flu. And from the data we had at the time, you're kind of right to do that. But at this point, that's perfectly acceptable. It is pretty comparable to the flu. There's ways in which the flu is worse. Many ways in which the flu is worse. So again, the idea that we need to be, any worried about this whatsoever. I see all these paranoid idiots worried, oh, we can't send the kids back to school. And again, I'm not big on sending the kids back to school either, but because I'm worried about the spread of communism, not the spread of the virus with the death rate that's pretty much the same as the flu, actually less than that for the kids. But nonetheless, that's the big thing coming out of the weekend. And again, this is from Nick Short, and I mean, this is something we already pretty much knew, but it basically came out why Jacob Blake was why he was killed. I mean, or almost killed, I guess. I'm not sure. I don't think he's dead. But basically, I'm not going to go into exactly what he did because it's a lot of stuff that may get you banned for saying. But long story short, all the worst things we thought about him were pretty much came out to be true, right? And this is the other big thing I hear people bring up. Oh, well, he was never found guilty yet. Cops shouldn't be judge, jury, and executioner. Well, yeah, you're right about that, but you don't believe that either. You think that, oh, the cops shouldn't be able to lynch this guy, but you're perfectly fine with lynching the cops, right? You're perfectly fine with lynching them. So again, they're just pure hypocrites. And the other thing to bring up too is that what innocent man violently resists arrest and goes for a weapon? Why would an innocent man do that? Like, seriously, why would an innocent man do that? And not to mention too, why would an innocent man go to a house, go to the house of his alleged sexual assault victim and domestic abuse victim? Why would he do that? Why would he do that? If you're innocent, you're not allowed to be there. So why would, again, there's just so many things that no one who's in 99.99% of innocent people in that situation do not do that. And if you do that, you're so stupid that you probably should be convicted of it because you're just that stupid, right? So this is the thing. Knowing what we know, I don't care what the cops did. I don't care what color your skin is. If you are in this situation, you violently resist arrest, you go for a weapon, I don't care what happens after that. I don't care, because you forfeited your right to live when you do this kind of stuff. And I don't understand why it's so confusing for people. I don't understand. And this is the reason why it's so confusing, is that these people have a narrative of, oh, blacks are oppressed and blacks are disproportionately killed, even though they aren't. And the reason they aren't is that, and the reason that you would know if they were, is that, again, blacks are whatever, 13% of the population, they'll say, and they're 25 or 30%, whatever number they say, because it's bigger than 25, or it's bigger than 13. And they say, oh, that's proof that blacks are overrepresented and thus racism. But yet they don't adjust for the likelihood of committing crimes. Here's the way that you'd be able to tell if these people are actually being honest and actually being genuine. They would be like, yep, they wouldn't care about the percent of the population, because that's completely meaningless. Like, it's completely meaningless. Like, if I brought up that men are whatever 95% of the prison population and only half the population, therefore sexism, people would laugh at me, because people know that men are a lot more likely to commit crimes, right? But when you do it in the reverse, or the reason no one does it in the reverse, because if you did, you would all of a sudden find out, hey, blacks aren't overrepresented. Yeah, they're 13% of the population, but studies show time and time again that they commit about half the violent crime. And when you look at it that way, okay, whites are, what is there? I think there's about 20 unarmed whites that get shot a year. Blacks, there's about 10. Okay, well, that number shows that, okay, if anything, what blacks aren't overrepresented. If anything, they're underrepresented. So again, this is the way that you would know if blacks are actually overrepresented when it comes to this kind of stuff. And there's racism, is if blacks are more likely to be killed, adjusted for the likelihood to commit crime, because the percent of the population doesn't mean anything. That means nothing. The only way that means anything is if everybody, whether you're an 80-year-old, man, or a 10-year-old kid, you know, does, everybody commits crime with the exact same rate. But everybody with half a brain, you don't need to be a criminologist to know that's BS. So this is the way. Again, until blacks, or not until black, but until people who go along with this whole black oppression, this horrible racism narrative, until they can prove definitively that, okay, blacks commit X% of crime and they're more than that number, likely to be killed by police. Until they show me that number and that study, they're wrong. They're definitively wrong. And the fact that they have that, the fact that this BLM garbage has been going on for years and they still haven't done that, just goes to show that they're never going to be able to do it, because if they did, they would, right? Because that would be the nail in the coffin. Racism amongst blacks exists. That would be the definitive nail in the coffin. There's no debate on the topic. But because they don't bring that up, we know they're wrong. So anyway, this is from Paul Joseph Watson. He says, the reason you're depressed is because you allowed the most bland, pathetic, cowardly people to take over society and culture. And now your every experience is bland, cowardly, and pathetic. And yeah, this is a big problem in society today, that one of the biggest problems with society nowadays is lack of meaning, Uh, and people substitute, a lot of times addictions to fill that void. They substitute it. They get involved with the wrong crowds. They get into bad relationships, and that's one of the biggest problems facing society. And we need to get a handle on it. Like, we need to get a handle on it. But the problem is that there's not a lot of incentive to do it, because nihilistic people pretty much run society, and not to mention the majority of the population votes for those people. And if anything, that number's only going to get bigger over time. So that is a very big problem, and it's probably never going to be I mean, it will be addressed at some point, but it may be a the tipping point may be so painful that a lot of people, there's going to have to be a ton of pain and suffering for us to fix that problem. So anyway, the next thing I wanted to bring up is from Andy No here, and he says, this is insane. BLM rioters armed with semi-auto rifles have shut down the street in Kenosha and ordered a sheriff's vehicle to stop. Yeah, and this is the thing too, that these people are, like I've been pointing out for a long time now, these people are going to keep escalating until they take over. And this is the thing too, is that they tell people that they want to defund or abolish the police, but no, they want to be the police, or at the very least control the police. That is the goal. I mean, you look at the whole Chop Chaz thing. Was there no police? No, there still was a police. There were just, unaccountable vigilante police, right? That were shaking down businesses, and what, 3, 4, 5 people got shot. I think one of the dads of one of the people that got killed is suing the city. So yeah, they don't want to get rid of the police. They just want to be the police. And because we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that these people they're revolutionary communists, they're rather honest about it. I don't know why it's still a debate. What happens when these people get power? Well, a lot of people die. And if you disagree with that, then you just don't understand history. You don't understand basic history, because what is one of the most common themes of the 20th century? It is corrupt and dictatorial, authoritarian governments killing a lot of people, the vast majority of them being completely innocent people. And the lesson of the 20th century should have been, because again, most people don't realize, they think the lesson of the 20th century is, oh well, when Nazis bad, or all the whatever they want, people were, the Red Scare, people were, afraid of communism for no reason, like all this garbage. But the reality is that the lesson of the 20th century is, don't allow the governments to get too big and powerful, because the minute you do, there will be groups of people that want to, take over that government and use that power to oppress people for their own benefit. And this is the other reason why, the left doesn't care about oppression or any of this garbage they claim to care about, is because if they actually did, they would want government to be smaller. They would want government to be less power. No, they don't want. They only care about corruption and oppression when it's not them in power. When it's them in power, they could care less, right? Like, Obama ran the country for 8 years. Biden ran the country for 8 years. But yet everything, oh, the States is this horribly racist country. Well, not to mention, too, I believe for part of Obama's presidency, the Democrats had the House and the Senate. I believe so. So they literally could have did whatever they wanted. They could have passed pretty much whatever, as long as it was constitutional, they could have did whatever they wanted. But they never did. Why? Because they don't care. They only care about it when the other side's in power. Now, you can make the same argument on the other side too, but the difference being is, like I point out all the time, is that the everyday right-wing voter wants a smaller government. If you want to point out that the everyday right-wing politician may claim they want a smaller government, but a lot of them don't, fine, that's a fair point. But the everyday leftist voter wants a bigger government, and the everyday leftist politician wants a bigger government. So that's one thing that you know, is that if you get the left, you will get a bigger government. What happens when you get a bigger government? The likelihood of authoritarianism usually prevails. And why does that happen? Because the bigger the government gets, the less, checks and bounds there is, which means the more likely there is for corruption and all this kind of corporate cronyism that goes on within government. So anyway, that's kind of the last thing I wanted to bring up. So if you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check me out on Twitter and BitChute and Parler. Make sure you follow me there. All those links are in the description, so check them out there, and stay tuned for more.